Okay. Hi.
So we got to the third hospital, Anschutz, which is a large university teaching hospital. Um,
Mm-hmm.
same university system that Melanie works at.
Mm-hmm.
And
University of Colorado.
yeah, so it's a pretty good. It's got a good reputation.
Yeah, and I got to know. Well, okay, so the nurses were the first people we hung out with because it was there. We were there on a weekend, and there were doctors there, obviously, but
It was a late Saturday night, March 9th.
this was still Friday night.
Oh, oh
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And so anyway, so Rachel was there as our first nurse, and she was amazing. The next morning, Bailey took over. Again, Bailey, wish we knew your last name. Um, but the two of you were most important to me in like the questions you were answering and things like that. And what happened was, um, so through the first night, it was just like making sure you were still ticking.
And I still had the pump in, right? The
You
external
still had the pump in.
blood pump.
And I was sitting in the very uncomfortable futon next to the bed, but because it was ICU, I got to stay overnight. So we were just kind of keeping an eye on that. And then the next day, they took you into um, another a cath lab, I think, to remove the pump because they felt like you had enough strength at that point in your heart. And they took out that piece. And then, um, well, we'll talk about that other thing maybe if you feel like it. But at one point, he started, it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 or 6, and our friends Sue and Tracy, thank you, Sue and Tracy, were coming with dinner for me to eat because again, I hadn't eaten much that day at all. And they walked in just as well. I had noticed that Tony wasn't responding to me when I would say, you know, hey or whatever.
What day is it?
He would, I mean, even when he's just like taking a nap or something, I'll ask something and he'll respond like, whatever. You don't sleep that heavily. But in this case, he wasn't responding to me at all. And so I went to Bailey and I was like, what meds is he on right now? I don't know what meds he's on. And she was such an amazing nurse. And she looked at me and she's like, why? What are you seeing? And so I said, he's not responding to me like he would normally do. And so she came over to the bed with me. She started to do that thing with her knuckles on his sternum to try and wake him up like that.
Pressing really hard.
And he wasn't responding. And she was like, can you tell me your name? And Tony did this. He was like, he was nodding. He was like,
can you tell me your name?
Nodding. And like, can you say your name? But he wasn't saying anything. And I
have no memory of this.
Yeah, this was maybe the scariest moment of my life.
Mm-hmm.
He was not responding. He was not like reacting. And I was just like, please just say your name or say my name, say someone's name. And he wasn't saying anything. And so Bailey did whatever they do when they're hitting like the stroke protocol. Like
I called it pushing the big blue button.
Yeah.
Because at that point, like a whole bunch of people come rushing into the room.
Yeah, like just what had happened the previous morning when he had tested positive for a heart attack, and they all rushed in. Same thing. They like ripped up all the stuff, all the wires and everything was like, and they went down the hallway with him. And just then, Sue and Tracy came in with some food, and it was I just couldn't. I could barely breathe. It was so scary.
Mm-hmm.
And so they stayed with me while we waited and prayed and just all the worst case scenarios were in my head. And
that's my girl.
That's what I do.
That's what she does.
And so just like, I mean, it's hard to revisit those moments. but thankfully I had really good friends there. He was out for 45 minutes. They had taken him away, and I just was like, what does it look like when they come back? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what happens? And 45 minutes later, um, your bed came wheeling around, and Bailey was like on this corner, and she's the first face I saw, and the first thing she said was, "It's not a stroke." And
Did you
it
cry?
turned out, oh, I mean, I was
Bawling.
so thankful. And not it was not a stroke. It turned out it was a migraine, but it was mimicking stroke symptoms. Um, that ended up happening 2 more times during the hospital stay.
There was actually a fourth one, but I didn't say anything because I didn't want to go through the CAT scan again. Was it CAT scan? CAT scan.
Yeah, you were in the CT scan for,
Yeah.
yeah, they would run him down there to make sure there was no stroke happening. And that was scary every time. But by the third time, I was at least hopeful that it was still just a migraine. So, um,
And not like this was like 3 or 4 times during the whole stay, which was almost 2 weeks.
yeah, yeah.
Were there more? Were they all 3 or 4 in the first week? The migraine stroke thing.
I think they were all in the first week. Yeah,
That's why they
Yeah.
let me go because I stopped.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah. Other things too, but so it was. I was sleeping at the hospital. Um, I think for one stretch, I had the same shirt on for 4 or 5 days. And then at one point, there was a snowstorm where they shut down.
It's like a week into the stay.
Yeah, it was like the whole city was shutting down. And, but I wasn't going anywhere anyway. We were here, stuck at the hospital. Um, and so, but I desperately wanted to get home before the snow hit to take a shower because I hadn't showered for a while and just there wasn't time. And couldn't get home in time. So essentially, they ended up letting me take a shower in one of the
Like
patient. It was like a patient shower area, and so I was able to at least wash my hair. But that was it was hard. Plus, I love a good snowstorm, and I was like,
Was it pretty out the window?
it was so pretty out the window.
We had a window. I had a room to myself. I don't know if all of the cardiac ICU rooms are single beds, but
I think so.
okay,
It seemed like they were.
because it's cardiac ICU.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think they would have transferred me to like after the first week. I was there 13 days total, including the first 24 hours in the clinic and the surgery at Highlands Ranch Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I think after the first week, they would have transferred me to a lesser room out of the ICU,
Yes.
but they didn't have any beds, like that. They had no open rooms into which to transfer me. Does that sound right?
I don't remember that part. I
Okay.
remember that it was that you were still
There's complications.
there was some complications.
There's bleeding. Not going to get into it.
Yeah.
So
And it was partially because it's a teaching hospital and somebody did something where they were learning how to do it.
there's
I would say.
complications.
There was complications.
Not related to my heart. Hearts, for
Yeah.
the most part, I think it recovered pretty quickly and pretty well.
Mhm.
Especially considering apparently it was really bad when they had to put in the fish pump or the windshield washer pump.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
who's been concerned about the cat being home by herself this whole time? Yes, I know there's been a couple of you.
Yes.
So,
Uh-huh.
well, at what point? So her parents in Minnesota drove out like between blizzards.
Yeah, they came out pretty quick. It was like I think they were here by like Monday night. You went in on Friday, maybe Sunday night. I mean they came
Yeah.
very quickly, which we were so thankful for. I was so thankful for. So they came out here, and I mean came to the hospital, but mostly like stayed at the house, fed the cat. Really, the cat just needed someone that she could treat with disdain. So I
Yeah.
think any humans,
And we had the automatic feeder at that point, I think, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
there's always plenty of water, and the dispenses dry food twice a day, so she was okay. Just needed somebody upon which to express.
To be condescending.
Yes.
And angry.
And like, watch me while I ignore you.
Exactly.
Are you watching? Because I'm
So,
ignoring you. You
yeah.
know that, yeah.
So mom and dad came out for that, and that was amazing. And then they also, because I appreciate, like, they're always wanting to do something productive, and they helped us with renovation we were doing in the basement with a new, eventually it'll be a bedroom once we get egress in there, but they were helping us.
Yeah.
With
we had started because that December.
We started in January, yeah.
January. So yeah, we had started, but other than the demo, which we did, they did 90% of it.
They did a lot of it,
Yeah.
yes. So they did drywall for us when we were we were in the hospital. They did the drywall.
They did the framing. Oh,
framing,
did they do the framing?
Drywall.
I mean, before that, or did they do the framing during the heart attack?
During.
Oh yeah, they did the framing. They did drywall. Did the whole. Yeah.
Yep.
I did electrical. I had done the plumbing, which is just capping off some old lines. Yeah.
Yeah, so they were here to help with that, which was so amazing. I'm still grateful to this day that they were able to do that. So they stayed out here for a while, and they got snowed in here when that big blizzard happened. They were here at home.
The second one.
The first one was when that night, and then the second one was like 17 inches of snow, and they just kept taking pictures out our windows here so that I could see what it felt like to be snowed in here, as opposed to the cardiac ICU.
We'd prefer to be snowed in here.
Yeah, it's better here.
They probably have better backup generators, as in they would have a backup generator. But other than that, we'd rather be snowed in here.
Yeah, So it was. Those days were a blur. I mean, we were in there for 13 days.
And I was conscious for a lot of this part now. I have maybe 3 or 4 days worth of memories combined out of the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And even those are kind of vague.
Yeah, and they had a lot of like medicine that they were giving you.
A lot of drugs, trying different things out. Here, take this.
Yeah. So it was. I mean, it was a lot, and there was. I mean, it was just uncomfortable and painful for you. It was hard for me to see him uncomfortable and in pain. And there was this waiting room 2 doors down from where his...
Like a little atrium.
Yeah, it was called a sunroom. And I spent quite a bit of time in there. Like, if I got a phone call, I'd go take it in there or whatever. Or someone came to visit, sometimes I'd go sit down there if Tony was sleeping. Or if they were doing stuff with you, if the nurses were doing anything. So,
kind of coupled baths. Like, I spent almost the entire time in the hospital bed. And once or twice, like, Tony, you want a bath? Like, I don't know, I'm tired. Everything hurts. Tony, you want a bath? Like, I'm fine. You should really get a bath.
Really?
Oh, at one point, I'm like...
I don't remember that.
But... At one point, I'm like, man, I stay... Like, when they change the sheets, I'm like, oh, is that me? Somebody stinks. It's me. And you know, a couple hours later, she comes in like, remember how you said you were stinky? Like, yeah. I'm like, oh.
I don't remember that, but
yeah,
I do remember.
It was like the smell of dried blood and pee or something. I don't know. Or maybe just.
Yikes! I don't remember that.
Know.
I do remember. Should I tell the story about the?
I was not peeing on myself.
The vomiting.
So
another vomit story.
So I got one CT scan at the very first 24-hour clinic in the ER. And then 3 CT scans at Anschutz.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And on the second one at Anschutz, so the third one total, it's like a migraine. It's like my brain is shutting down, similar to stroke symptoms.
I was with Nurse Bailey again.
Thank you, Bailey.
We love you, Bailey.
And was that the one where Rebecca was there? Or no, it was a nurse. I think it was a nurse. And they're like asking me questions and I might not be responding. And I looked at. I'm like trying to put words together. I'm having trouble putting words together at that time. And I looked at and I said, "You have two heads," because the vision is one of the first things that goes when I get migraines. And I think that at that point they're like, "Okay, we will change the trajectory of these questions right now," something like that. And I think that was the one.
Well, you were. I think you'd come back from the CT scan at that point.
Oh, I was going down a different path.
Oh, okay. Well, what I remember was.
Wait.
Oh.
No, so.
Okay, you finished.
Remember the contrast? I said my body reacts and I end up vomiting, and the whooping cough. It sounded like whooping cough, which confused the nurse at the first place because
it's like a honk.
Apparently, I'm loud and violent when I'm vomiting. So they're wheeling me off for this third CT scan. And I'm like, the whole time going down the hallway, I'm like, I'm trying to put together a sentence that says, "I'm allergic to the contrast." Because I think they should know this before they give it to me. Apparently they gave it to me anyway. But like as I think I was in the CT scan room and they're doing stuff, and I knew the sentence wasn't perfect, but I tried to get out something that says, "I'm allergic to the contrast, the IV iodine contrast." Apparently, whatever I was able to get out vocally did not resemble the sentence, because I saw in the records later, I forget how they phrased it, but apparently it was just random gibberish, probably not even words. They use like the doctor's words to describe whatever I got out. But I remember thinking, okay, I said my piece, hopefully they understood what I said. Apparently not. Or they just didn't care.
I'm gonna go with no on that. I don't know that there's an
alternative.
I don't know that there's an alternative. But either way, you were back in the room, and I was there
after the CT scan.
Nurse Bailey. She's a hero. So is Rachel. You guys all were amazing, all the nurses. But so Tony's kind of sitting up in bed and
I have no memory of this.
Not doing well. He's showing migraine symptoms, and I knew what those look like. And
just for migraine symptoms, don't really get a headache, no pain, but it's kind of like a stroke. Vision goes. I have trouble reading, sometimes trouble understanding. Like, you can say the easiest sentence in the world, see Jane run Jane, whatever. And it won't compute. Sometimes I'll have trouble speaking. So even when the vision comes back, which it often, like, that's the first symptoms and it kind of comes back, I remember looking at like a one-syllable, super easy word, and I remember thinking, I know that, and this is not during the hospital, this is previous migraines. Like, I know that word, I know that's an easy word. I have no idea what that word is. It's.
So the migraines were already scary before.
Yeah. I hate them.
Yeah, and they used to scare me a lot. But they still do, I guess. But the ones in the hospital were terrible. And so he's sitting up in the bed, and Bailey and I are next to the bed. She's on one side, I'm on the other. We're talking to him, and he... I think he indicates he's not feeling well. Then there's like a vomit as he's sitting there, like it's coming out. And it was a little bit projectile. The first one. That was our warning. The first vomit was our warning. So I grabbed the blanket that was on the bed next to him.
Oh.
And it turns out it was a fitted sheet. And so what I did was, and Bailey took the other side of it, we put the fitted sheet over him.
Just holding it up.
Like this, so that all the vomit was encased within the fitted sheet. And I was like, I felt like, I mean, this must feel like torture. Because you didn't understand what was happening to you. And we were covering you with the sheet so that the vomit stays contained.
I have no memory of this.
Yeah. And so, and I was like, I mean.
Proud of yourself for catching the second volley?
Yeah. I mean, the first one kind of hit, I think it might have hit Bailey more than me. Like, I don't think.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, it was mostly on yourself, but it was also like, So I mean, it was awful, and
Was I even eating anything at this leading up to the days? I
I
think I was just on IV fluid for days.
yeah, I mean, I think we might have gone with maybe some soup or something.
Mm.
I don't remember at that point. Um,
But somehow
we
there
had that
was.
little notebook where I was taking notes every time
Oh.
the doctor came in. Maybe we can
Yeah.
check that. But
Yeah.
anyway, it was later. It felt like a really funny moment because the fitted sheet really did a great job of capturing and containing the projectile vomiting.
Well done.
But then the room smelled bad. It's like, oh, okay.
Sorry?
But we did some cleanup there, and
I'm sorry.
once, I mean, I think then you were able to sleep that night, and so whenever you were sleeping, I was trying to sleep, but then there was times where you slept where I was wide awake. But
Make sure I'm breathing.
yeah, I still do that
Checking
to this day.
Looking at the machines, or
Yep, watching the machines.
and every time something would beep, there's always something beeping.
Mhm.
Was there always something, like, not always, but way too frequently something would set off an alarm to the point where you start ignoring them?
I started to be able to sleep through some of the alarms just because I hadn't slept I hadn't slept very well, especially the first week. The second week, I was able to sleep more. I was still sleeping on the futon, and it was just long enough for like my feet.
Oh,
Like no, my feet were not straight, so they had to hang off the futon for me to like sleep there.
it was like a very firm looking couch, like a
It wasn't comfortable.
love seat, like not that big.
I don't know what it is about hospital furniture. It's never good. I
I'm sure
assume they try.
Yeah,
I don't think they're doing that on purpose, but it did
I
not.
remember the one at Wheat
fit me
like
well at all.
it looked like it should be. No,
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep the one time I was there.
Yeah. So I got the right pillow. I brought the right pillow from home. On my second trip home, I got a pillow. They were also bringing me warm blankets if I asked for them.
They were pretty good at the warm blankets.
Yeah, they were also making sure I stay hydrated because I was like, they were caring for me as much as they were for him. They were like, "Do you need some water?"
I was trying to stay hydrated. I mean,
yeah.
I think for a couple days I like kept this in my arm so they wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
Because at one point they put me on a fluid restriction. Like, no, I think I drink 4 of these a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were concerned that there was some kidney stuff going on.
So, hey, we'll dehydrate him. That'll be good for the kidneys.
They did limit his intake, and he drinks so much all the time that it really was.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That may have given me one of the migraines.
They were measuring how much he was drinking. They were also measuring how much he was peeing. So they were writing down like what that
100 cc's
output
here,
was,
1,000 cc's there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'd never been so involved in
urine tracking,
the tracking of pee,
of fluids.
Yeah, so it was something.
I think after I snuck in, somehow got a spare liter.
Because your dad visited and you were like, "Hey, can you fill
Hey,
the
by the
water
way, I'm
bottle?"
almost empty. Can you fill this? And he hadn't seen the sign on the door that says fluid restriction.
And I wasn't in the room, I don't think, at the time.
And she wouldn't have done it. She would have refused.
I wouldn't have. No, because I was trying to be the rule follower because it was you and
I'm dying.
You were.
I'm like every
He was
sip.
very dehydrated.
I was rationing and like, oh, it's only been 20 minutes since my last swallow. I need to go.
Yeah.
I need to make it last.
And he's always very immediate about those things too, just in normal life. Like if he's thirsty, it's like water now. And like hungry, food now. So it was very immediate. So yeah, his dad was his
that one there was one day
co-conspirator on that one.
Yeah, enabler in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my parents were great. He came, I don't remember. I actually don't know how many times they came by. And family, and friends.
A lot of family showed up on Sundays after church. They'd come by, and we'd see church people too. Jenny and Christy came by, and who else did we see? So
I got to rely on her memory for these.
Kari and Jim and Kadix and Zulma, and
Jeff and Dr. Rebecca.
Jeff and Rebecca.
Which was helpful to have a medical doctor in the same hospital system, different hospital, different city, but knew the system and the words and sign into this.
And Sue and Tracy came back a few times during that time. I will always remember them being there for that time when we didn't know if it was a stroke or not with Tony.
They were there for 2 of the migraines that looked like strokes.
Yeah. I think Sue was there for the second one.
Yeah, she brought over a card game.
Yeah, she brought over like a goodie bag for.
Probably for you.
It was mostly for me, I think, and some games and things.
Sorry. Come on, go. Hopefully that didn't.
Time to take the heart meds.
That's the heart medicine reminder.
Yeah.
Hopefully that didn't interrupt the video, like on the screen. Whatever.
Yeah.
Oh shoot! There's a couple things. I was gonna go back at one point. This might have been day 2 or 3 or 4. Like waking up in bed because I slept through so much. And I think
that's your body's response.
And at one point I'm like,
there's a lot.
What did this get here? There's a Velcro strap on my wrist.
Oh.
And it's like not a bandage, not a gauze. It's like a nylon strap, like a toe strap, but not one. There's Velcro on my wrist. I'm like,
Yep.
What is this? When did this get there?
A difficult moment as well. Do you remember?
Was this? Well, I remember you telling me. This was after they removed the pump in my thigh and the arterial artery. No, what was
femoral artery?
Femoral artery. After they removed the pump, after like 24 hours after the heart surgery, they're like, okay, his heart is pumping enough on its own. We can remove the pump. And I guess they did. They told me they did. It's not there, so they must have removed it. But again, like that's a big artery. You do not want to rip that scar open.
No.
Because they were just like in the artery. And did they tell you like he has to keep his legs straight?
Yeah.
So what did I do?
So this is pressure on me. Like, don't let him move his leg. Well, what am I supposed to do? Like, because, Tony, bless his heart.
It's like, oh, my leg's stiff.
Oh, I gotta move the leg. It's it hurts. I gotta move it.
I gotta bend this leg. It's all stiff. I've been in the same position for another 12 hours. I guess. I don't remember it.
It was. He was in the same position for a long time.
If it wasn't for that strap that they forgot to take off of my wrist, I would have never known.
No, they did that on purpose. Because you
Left
also, at one point, were like kind of pulling at your IV. So they
That was a distraction?
They connected you to the bed.
Right, but they didn't leave it there on purpose. They left one strap on. No, I wasn't tethered. I just had the remainder.
Well, you were tethered for a little while.
Yeah, I have no memory of
for a
that.
while.
That's what. Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Were all of my limbs tied down? Because you said my hand was.
They might have been all.
So I wouldn't grab the IV, and my leg must have been tied down, so that I wouldn't bend it.
Yeah.
At the hip.
I think. Oh yeah, I think they did. Yeah, I remember them telling me, and I was like, oh, he's
not gonna like that.
He's not gonna like that.
Oh, I would hate that.
Because yeah,
I would absolutely.
Well, and like I said, like at that point, you had so many drugs in your system, and you had been under anesthesia, so it was like this. You were like a little kid, and I mean, just not in a bad, but just like your body was going through so much trauma.
Yeah.
And you were like, I'm thirsty. I need water. Like, it was just you noticed your needs immediately and you needed them, met. And then your leg hurt and you were like, I got to move my leg. And the nurses had been like, don't let him move his leg. And so I felt like that was my job. And I was struggling so much with I'm like, I know you need to move. Like, you cannot move right now. And you would hear me for like 5 seconds. And then he'd be like, I got to move my leg. Huh. And I'm like, please don't move your leg.
I have no memory of this.
I have all the memories of this. And it was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah, the only thing I remember is waking up later with one strap they forgot to remove. It wasn't tied to anything. It was just the wrist strap. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what is this one? This isn't medical.
The remains of needing to tie him down.
Huh. So I was that patient.
Well,
I mean, I wasn't violent or anything.
No, it wasn't that at all.
I'm just going to rip out my own IV because it itched or something.
Because, yeah, I mean, like, oftentimes I think they do that for people who are just violent. But for you, it was just like, please stay still. Please don't move.
Stop itching that. That's supposed to
Yeah.
needle is supposed to
Don't
be
take
there.
out the IV.
Yeah, and don't bend your leg, because
Yeah, don't bend the leg.
bleeding to death sucks.
Yeah, yeah. So that was scary. And when they put those jobs on me, and I am not trained as a medical professional. I have a PhD, but it is not an MD. So
Did you ever have to like body tackle me so I wouldn't move?
at one point, yes, I was like leaning on him.
I was
like,
kidding.
For real though, I was like,
Holding my leg down?
no, I was holding your shoulders down.
Oh.
Because you were like, I'm out of here. Like, I don't know what it was. It was totally like, and I was like, you need to stay there. And it was, yeah.
I remember for the last 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days, I'm like, can I go home? Can I go home? Can
Yeah,
I go
it
home?
was-
Can I go home? I just want out. I just want out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try and stand up and like pass out.
That's true. He,
I passed out a few times.
yeah. Yeah, there was something about that too. It was like you were,
Low blood
I had
pressure?
not seen you pass out. And then twice there was a point where you did. And the first time I saw you were just kind of right next to your bed. And
I was
so,
like sitting up like, I'm there
Yeah.
for 13 days. I have to go to the potty sometimes. So, like, was I sitting on the edge of the bed? Like, the bathroom was 4 steps away. It's in the same room. And then I
Yeah.
passed out.
then you passed out on the bed. And then there was another time where they were moving you to the bathroom. And then I think you passed out on the way to the bathroom.
I made 2 of the 5 steps, apparently, and that's...
Yeah.
So, even if I wanted to go home, they weren't letting me going home.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the last days at the hospital were still like nothing. It never felt like we were like calmly waiting for something. It felt like there were things all the time that kept happening that drew out how long he was staying. And even the day that they let us go, I don't know if you've been discharged from a hospital, it usually takes like all day. And so
They're like, yeah, we've started the discharge.
it was
12 hours later,
yeah,
a wheelchair shows up.
we did get home before dark that day, and they started the process early in the morning. I had started my own little rituals while we were living at the hospital. I would get a Dazbog white mocha in the morning.
Is that a Denver coffee company?
I think it might be.
I think they may have started in Denver and now there's more. But
Yeah. But so I would go downstairs and get my Dazbog mocha, white mocha, and then I would come back upstairs, and the doctors, because it was a teaching hospital, were doing rounds, and they would do like these like group conversations.
like an entourage of students.
Yeah, it's like 6 or 7 of them, and they'd wheel around this computer, and
So yeah, they'd always invite you to join the conversation,
yeah, they pulled me out.
which is nice.
It was really nice, and I feel like I also was like, I could ask some of their questions. Like, I feel like I asked questions in like a research way because I was curious about what does that sound?
I'm going to pause the camera for a second and just, because there's a noise outside. We'll be right back.